I didn't realize that Mel-O-Cream International was not the retail Mel-O-Cream.
Right.
So talk a little bit about the separation there, and then what you guys do and maybe who your end users are for your product that you're manufacturing.
Yeah. So, and that's misperception across everyone in the community almost.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you have to distinguish that as soon as you tell them, part owner of Mel-O-Cream, like, I love this donut. Well, we don't make that one.
Yeah, it's funny because I grew up here.
Yeah.
And I thought that all of my years until I first visited Dave when I was with the Chamber of Commerce. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Well, joining us at the table today is Chad Larson, Vice President and COO of Mel-O-Cream International. Chad, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for asking. Well, glad to be here. Really cool place.
Yep. Welcome to the table. Glad to have you.
Yeah. So your background is really fascinating and interesting. You guys have been here as you're one of 3 or 4 owners of Mel-O-Cream for about, 4.5, 5 years?
Going on 5 years, December 2nd.
Okay. Yeah. So just before COVID hit.
Exactly.
We'll circle
hit
back
that one.
to that, especially
Everybody
as
wants
a
to
new
know.
owner, right?
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of your history in the food manufacturing industry, because I love your story.
Yeah.
Well, it starts out. Funny thing is, my father was in the Navy, like 1969, 1970, when he graduated high school. He got out of the Navy and opened his first bakery. And I grew up in a bakery environment. So my whole entire life was sleeping on flour sacks and running around playing with dough and doing all the things that you do as a kid in a bakery, not really learning baking stuff, but being exposed to it and seeing a small entrepreneurial business and, what it took to be in that position.
Now, when I think of a bakery, did you guys have early hours like
All night long baking?
all night long?
Yeah, fresh operation, just like a retail, old school. It grew into multiple sites, so made out of one site and then distributed to multiple sites. And that was when the boom of in-store bakeries started to come on.
Okay.
And they would start to bring product in from local bakeries and serve fresh product rather than making it themselves. So it was a transitional period in the 70s and early 80s. So I grew up doing that. And as I watched the business and talked, and my father left the company, went on and did other things for other companies, I realized that, as you look at school choices, what are going to pay you back, right? I always viewed it as a business endeavor. So I went to school for a while, dropped out after my associate's degree, or just about didn't quite finish my associate's degree. Figured I'd be smarter and go do something else, which wasn't the case. Ended up back in the bakery business, working for one of my father's companies. And then I went on to 2 different baking schools, one in Minnesota, which is called Dunwoody Institute. They no longer have a bakery program. And then I went to AIB, American Institute of Baking in Manhattan, Kansas, which is attached to Kansas State University, which is a milling and grain school.
Okay.
They no longer have a residence course either.
Okay.
So I did a year in Minnesota and then 6 months in Kansas, and then got a job at Heinz. So Heinz had a bakery division.
Okay.
So I was 24 years old, dating myself a little bit. So it'll be 30 years this year that I've been doing this.
Wow.
And I started off as a regional quality manager for Heinz at 24 years old, running 3 quality systems in California, Kansas, and Oklahoma.
No kidding.
So, and then I went on and went back to school and did undergraduate degree and then 2 masters in MBA and then a master's in project management. So then it kind of opened doors for me to lead companies and lead people and that big journey. So
now you used to work here at Mel-O-Cream.
Yeah.
20 some odd years ago.
Yeah.
And then left.
Right at 20 years ago, because our son's 19. He was born here.
Okay.
And I was a quality manager for Mel-O-Cream for about 3 years. And I decided I wanted to grow my career and do something different. And I was finishing my first undergraduate degree. And I left and went to Indiana and ran a donut plant as a plant manager, larger than this one, for Dawn Food Products, who's still a supplier for us, and I still know the Jones family.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then pizza after that? Or was that?
Bagels.
Bagels
In California and SoCal and LA area.
Okay.
Ran a bagel plant for Grupo Bimbo co-packer. So Grupo Bimbo makes like Entenmann's and all of those Thomas bagels, all those.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, Entenmann Donuts, Thomas bagels. But I ran a Thomas bagel plant making bagels for them for a couple of years. And then I went to Milwaukee and then was at Palermo's Villa, Palermo's Pizza. Everybody knows
Gotcha.
it. You see them in the grocery stores.
Yeah.
Cream
Sure.
and Sicilian.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Connie's Pizza. That's all Palermo's.
Okay. So are the processes fairly similar?
Yeah.
From the donuts to the bagels to the...
No, they're all unique. Bakery's interesting. They're all different. They're similar in certain ways. The mixing side of it's all fundamentally the same.
Yeah.
But you get into the forming and change. Like you look at a bagel with a hole in it, is not the same as a donut with a hole in it.
Ah, okay.
So they're formed very differently.
Really?
Yeah, very differently.
Interesting.
Yeah, most people would never know that. The bagels start off as a strip of dough and curled and then run down a tube that has a little thing in the middle of it and it forms it in it. It's a very stiff dough.
Okay.
So most of them, unless they're the flat ones, like the mini thin ones that they sell now, the Thomas Thins, those are done just like a donut.
Gotcha. Okay.
So very similar.
Yeah, very cool. I think we made this observation before we started that you produce things that everybody loves, pizza and donuts.
I've been blessed. I've been blessed that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always easy to start a conversation when you have those two things.
No, that's awesome. So you came back here in 2019.
Correct.
Purchased the business with your father, your brother, and I think
Another
one
friend.
other owner. What's it been like coming back here in ownership? What are the biggest surprises that you ran into when you walked back in the door to Springfield?
Well, I mean, the obvious one is COVID.
Sure.
Yeah, right.
I mean, and no one expects to buy a business and 3 months later the whole thing shuts down. The world shuts down.
Yeah.
Right.
That was definitely a little bit of scary times, but we kept perspective and understood what we had to do. We obviously leveraged the PPP, and not ashamed to say that.
Sure.
It's a lifeblood. It kept us alive.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mel-O-Cream
A lot
would
of
not
businesses.
It did.
Yes.
It did. Mel-O-Cream would not be here today if it wasn't for that.
Yeah.
And
that's-
we fortunately landed right back on our feet and start off a little slow, but as it went really quick. The biggest thing that came out of that for us, and I think most companies, is labor.
Sure.
Just the shortage of people and the
Yeah.
attitude towards working and things. It's just shifted. So
Yeah, it's
we're
not the
figuring
same.
that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the same as it used to be.
But leaving Milwaukee was tough.
Mm-hmm.
It took us 18 months to settle on buying this. I mean,
Is
my
that
father
right?
called me. I was fishing in Canada,
Uh-huh.
and he calls me and says, "Hey, we have an opportunity to buy Mel-O-Cream." I'm like, "Okay." And I said, I'm not home till next week. I think I was actually up there for 2 weeks. I'm like, "So, send me the information when I get home. I'll look at it." "Well, we got to do it now." All right, send me the stuff. So I looked through it, and I called my buddy, the president of the company I was at, Palermo's, and I said, "Hey, here's what I've got." And he says, "Well," and he understood.
Sure.
He gets it.
Yeah.
And he says, "Well, I can help you with everything except it's in Springfield, Illinois."
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We live in Milwaukee.
Yeah,
Right. Milwaukee's an amazingly cool town.
Yeah.
You've got every weekend there's a festival during the summer.
That's cool. Yeah.
You've got the baseball team, which was right across the street basically from our
Is that
facility.
right?
Yeah, we were one of the first businesses developed in that valley that they have, which is anchored by Miller Park, which is now AmFam. And then the other end, it was the Potawatomi Casino and Harley Davidson Museum. So it's really a cool area to work in.
Oh, yeah.
And then one of the owners of our company, Palermo's, bought a minority share of the Bucks.
Oh, nice.
So we had all the perks of the Bucks players coming around, and we had courtside tickets and all the fun stuff. I didn't get it every day, but
Sure.
regularly go to a game.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty special experience, and we had great seats for the baseball team. So coming here was not just about the business; it was about what we're leaving. Because I
Yeah.
loved where I worked. I loved the company. I loved the culture. I loved everything about it. So it was a hard decision for me personally.
Yeah. And how long did it take to buy?
18 months.
Oh, okay. So what did you do? Were you working for Mel-O-Cream though at that time?
No, I was working for Palermo's.
Oh, Palermo. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I was running a large facility and looking at merger and acquisition. I was helping that front of what do we do to grow.
Gotcha.
That was a big focus for us at that point in time. And then large capital projects. Actually, very end, we put a new bakery process in. It was a little over $13 million. Oh,
wow.
And behind the scenes, I'm working all the numbers up
The deal to buy
a
Mel-O-Cream.
company.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
burning the candle a little bit on both ends to get it done.
Yeah.
But it was a good experience, and I think it's been challenging in its own ways. COVID's tough, family's tough. Working with family can be difficult.
Sure.
So we all have different perspectives, so you always run into those times.
Do you think your son will get involved, or do you have other siblings?
We have 2 children.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I have a daughter that's 25, and she actually works for us.
Oh, she does.
Yeah, she'll be 25 in September.
Okay.
But she works as a production supervisor for 3 years, and then she got promoted to sanitation manager, so she runs the cleaning of the equipment now.
Oh, that's terrific.
And our son is in the Army. He's
Okay.
at Fort Bliss down in Texas. He just passed his 1 year of his 3.5-year commitment. Awesome. And we'll see what he does. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's 19, so the brain cells haven't quite clicked yet. So
When does that happen?
I don't know. Boys, mid-20s, probably, maybe late 20s.
And we're getting closer.
Yeah, they say girls are first, like at
Yes.
24, 25. Boys is usually 26, 27.
Yep.
So we got a ways to go yet.
I'm still 2 years out.
His frontal lobe isn't fully developed yet.
I love it. I think it's interesting that you talked about you loved the culture, loved where you were at Palermo. That was a hard place to leave. I've said oftentimes I think the best time for folks to consider a change or to consider leaving some places when you're in that position, because it's not because of any kind of pressure or
Right.
because you have to. And you really, I think, with a clean heart and mind can consider all those various options as you were.
Yeah.
I just think that's oftentimes people will leave under pressure and not make great decisions. And
There was none of that.
They
were
that
actually
struck
quite
me when you said
quite
it.
disappointed I was leaving.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
sounds
sure
like
they
it.
were.
And
Yeah.
like I said, I still stay in touch with them. I don't proclaim to have any influence on what goes on in their world, but I think they've left my fingerprint in their business. And
I'm sure.
And keep an open door. If something ever changed, I would love to go back and change, help them again. It's just a really cool place.
I love it.
Yeah,
Really
that's
cool
awesome.
place. And the family's wonderful.
So being from Decatur, I didn't realize that Mel-O-Cream International was not the retail Mel-O-Cream.
Right.
So talk a little bit about the separation there, and then what you guys do and maybe who your end users are for your product that you're manufacturing.
Yeah. So, and that's misperception across everyone in the community
Yeah.
almost.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you have to distinguish that as soon as you tell them, part owner of Mel-O-Cream. Like, I love this donut. Well, we don't make that one.
Yeah, it's funny because I grew up here.
Yeah,
and I thought that all of my years until I first visited Dave when I was with the Chamber of Commerce. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, that's not our
Anyway,
business.
so share that.
Yeah. Well, the scale, right? I mean, it's no joke. It's like it's grown, so it's a little over 2% of our total revenue is all it is. It's minuscule.
Okay, sure.
So we don't really do it to make a lot of money. This is more of a give back to the community for us, and it's an established business. And Amanda Crossland runs it here, is doing an amazing job. She's really, really stepped up the game. But the businesses locally here are owned under a licensing agreement. They pay us to use our ingredients to make the donuts.
Gotcha.
And they use our branding, so they have to okay everything through us as far as the branding. And then they pay just a licensing agreement for us. Based
And
on
they
revenue.
they make their they
do
donuts
all their
with
own
your
stuff
ingredients.
with our stuff.
Where do they
Correct.
do theirs? Any idea
Is it
where?
Laurel
Just out of
Street?
curiosity.
Laurel Street.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
It's great because it works out well for us. We don't have to be running retail's tough.
Oh,
Yes.
You think about the scale of what you're doing and the people and the hours and the locations and all stuff. I'm not. No, thank you. God bless her, because that's a tough gig.
Yeah.
We have enough challenges in our own. But back to the question of where do we sell then? So if it's only 2%, where's the other 98% go?
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
So we sell frozen products across the nation. So we go coast to coast. Our farthest customer is clear out on the West Coast in San Francisco.
Wow.
Amazing.
Unbelievable.
And we're sending several
Nobody
trucks
has
a week.
any idea
No.
in Springfield, Illinois, that you guys
well,
do
we
that.
make. I mean, let's scale this, right?
Sure.
So you've been there and seen it. I don't remember
I
if
have
you've
not been
been.
there.
You're
I've
always
not.
invited.
Thank you.
Any one of your
Yeah,
team
we'll
is
have to
always
come out
welcome to
again.
come out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Think
I
it's a
would
great
love to
idea.
come out and check it
but
out.
understanding, we make hundreds of donuts a minute on
Right.
2 different lines. Hundreds. I mean, we're making 1.5 to 2.5 million donuts a week, depending on the schedule and blend.
Yeah. Wow.
Individual pieces, and some of them are real little, some are bigger, but a lot of donuts.
Yeah.
Right?
That's,
So
that's a lot.
it's a lot of donuts. So that's where the scaling of what we do is so important, and that ability to run big runs and freeze it, because we freeze everything and it gets sent out frozen to
Okay.
these customers, so it has shelf life. usually 6 months plus.
And then you said something interesting earlier about the demand is higher than the capacity
In the industry.
And
that's
in
not
the
just
industry.
us.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
a great place to be in.
Yeah.
It is. It's the right business to be in. Now,
Yeah.
you know, the donut industry's been through ebbs and flows of that. That's natural. But I think what's interesting about it is we sell a lot of frozen dough product.
Okay.
And I bring that up because not long ago, nobody wanted to. What that means is we actually sell a frozen puck of dough shaped like a ring or shaped like a long john or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And we send it out to the customer like that. They thought proof it, fry it, finish it at their level, which puts a lot of labor in their end.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's not traditionally what stores wanted to do. Not long ago,
Is
that
that
line was
right?
almost gone. Like it was almost a dead item. But several big players got out of it, opened the market back up because there's still those customers that want to do that, make their own donuts, but don't want to put all the resources into it. And that's where we can fill a niche. And it's been a great business for us. That piece is huge. It's half our revenue.
Wow.
Maybe even a little
Yeah, that's a
more.
lot.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's your favorite donut that you guys
Oh,
make?
great question. I like the Mel-O-Cream, which is the white fluffy filled chocolate ice long john.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
which I
I'm-
can't say I've
I'm
had it in
hungry.
the last 6 months,
Yeah.
but I don't eat them every day.
Yeah, and then we were talking earlier because I didn't realize. I figured it was maybe a very automated process, but we talked a little bit about the cost to doing that. But talk about the whole jelly filling job and how that all goes down. And
Yeah, so the jelly fillet donuts go by. They're on a process. They run 8 wide. So there's 8 pieces coming across every cycle, and there's 30 some odd cycles a minute.
yeah,
Right?
Wow.
So you do the math, that's a big number.
Yep.
You're talking
240.
250 something, 240, somewhere in that range per minute going by that line. By the
Unbelievable.
people.
Yeah.
And they grab them 2 at a time. There's needles that look like pencils almost. They're stainless steel.
Sure.
They're hollow in the middle. They push this button, and when they hit it in and it fills the filling into a certain amount, they set it down, they grab 2 more, and they do it over and over and over and over for 8 hours a shift. Now, we move people around, so they're not doing it for 8 hours consistently.
Sure.
That'd be mind-numbing.
Yeah.
But it's a very labor-intensive process that we run about 16 hours or a little more a week. And it's tough to automate because it's very large footprint to do the sizes and shapes. And most people think, oh, you buy a robot or whatever. Okay, well, that's fine, well, good. But even robots have limitations.
Sure.
You have to put things in a certain order. And if you see how the process runs, they don't run in a linear, they don't generally come out in a linear process. They're kind of moved around a little bit. So square donuts, round donuts, rectangular donuts don't move through process the same. They don't go at the same rate.
Makes sense.
There's a lot of different things you have to consider. So you have to somehow get them all orientated in a way that that machine can do what it needs to do every time. That's the hard part. And that takes footprint, size, and space. And when they built the building, built it to suit what they needed, not thinking of what they might need in the future, which I'm not knocking them for that. No one knew this was technology was going to be available, and, you know, when they built the plant. So it's been a little bit of a challenge. And when it's only about 14% of your revenue, it just doesn't ROI. That's the hard part. So luckily, technology costs is coming down. Labor costs are going up. That need of bodies is harder and harder to fill. So there's more and more justification over time. I did that big project at Palermo's many years ago, and we did a packaging project, and I can say the numbers because it's public knowledge. We leveraged new market tax credits, so it was a little over $9.5 million, almost $9.7 million to upgrade their packaging equipment. And the interesting thing that justified that was the fact that over time, over the 2 years prior to that, we knew that the market trend on labor was going up significantly. This is back, 12 years ago now. So we started moving labor rates up, and I was laughing because I'm like, well, that just makes it easier for me to justify this big project.
Sure.
And sure enough, we were able to we didn't let anyone go, but we displaced 52 people out of the process, and we're able to pay for that project in a little over 2 years. So, those are the kind of scales of things you do. This, unfortunately, doesn't quite have that magnitude. It's not something you do every day. That was something we did every day. So as I look at the project, I balance that and watch the trending of what's going on in the industry.
Yeah.
So one thing that really fascinates Chris and I is people's leadership style. Maybe somebody that over the years you really looked up to, somebody that you would want to talk about, or what your leadership style is like, and what's the culture like at Mel-O-Cream.
Well, there's like 3 parts to that question.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
persons I look up to, there's a handful of them. And I'm critical of that a little bit. And I don't mean to be, but I am, because it's important to have a person that you work for your entire career that you have something you'll take from them, right?
Right.
And moreover, something they'll give.
Yeah.
There's people that have and don't give.
Correct.
Knowledge is power only when shared, is my philosophy.
Yes, that's for
So
sure.
I've had a few friends that I consider still to this day. When I got promoted up to vice president, I was a plant manager at Dawn Food Products. Let's back up a little bit. I left here. I took over a position as general manager, which is essentially a plant manager for Dawn Food Products, and I was terrible. I was really, really bad. I told
what was?
Why? Yeah. Why?
Just say more.
Just my attitude towards things, my approach to the problem, the conversations I'd have, just everything I focused on was wrong, right? And I'll say that because I'm a little more mature, and even then I knew I was struggling.
How'd you identify that, or how did that?
Didn't.
You didn't. Okay.
I didn't. I thought I was fine.
Yeah.
There's your ego, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I had a couple people I trusted, and they said, "Look, if we don't get some things right, you're not going to be with us."
Gotcha.
Well, that's serious. I want to be successful. I'm a very competitive person.
Sure.
So they partnered me with a gentleman by the name of Fred Alexander, and Fred was an old general manager, Southern guy, just had this accent, and he liked to hunt and fish like I like to hunt and fish, and just we hit it off.
Yep.
And they put him as my mentor, so I could call Fred at any time of day or night and say, "Hey, here's what I'm thinking," and he would actually help me through that. Sure. Fast forward, I believe I became much better leader through that process.
Yeah.
And I called. He was like the third person or fourth person I called when I got promoted to vice president at Palermo's.
Cool.
And he was so proud,
I
know.
bet.
And
I
it
bet.
was for me. It was one of those things to give back to him because I knew he was retired at that point. But I knew I needed him to know how much he helped me.
Yeah.
E.C. King was another gentleman that worked there. He's passed now recently. And then I had a plant manager or a vice president at the company out in California. He gave me a book called "Don't Sweat the Little Things," and helped me understand how to focus my attention on things that were important, not the noise.
Sure.
And because there's a lot of noise.
Oh yeah.
And I should probably I'll back into something else that's changed me as a leader. I had a significant accident when I lived in California, so we'll talk to that in a second.
Okay.
But then I went on to Milt Fuhr was my vice president. I took a vice president job from him. He moved to president at Palermo's, and he left the company, and he and I are still friends. We just talked last week.
Yeah.
So there's a handful of people that I got something from.
Sure.
And they let me be me. I said that earlier, one of the things about it is letting me be me. Pretty confident in what I bring to the table, maybe a little cocky. But I think at the same time, it's a proven track record, and I've got success. So the culture I left at Palermo's was really people-centric.
Okay.
I sincerely, genuinely care about everybody, even the challenging folks. And the same thing at Palermo's. Same thing at Mel-O-Cream. The hard part of Mel-O-Cream is we've got a old culture there.
Okay.
It's a handful of people. It's a union environment.
Yep.
So that adds dynamics to it, that there's an entity outside of our four walls that has influence on what's said and done. We still run the company, but at the same time, it can be challenged.
Sure.
And I'm trying to convey to the folks that we work with, especially some of the senior folks, that we really do care about them.
Yeah.
I mean that with all
The
sincerity.
union folks.
All
Yes,
of them.
yes.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Because I don't know if that's really been conveyed to them. I'm not knocking previous ownership. Everybody has a different approach.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think it's just more of a way we convey that to them and how we really seriously show it. So little things. We did a party at we rented out a pavilion there at Knights Action Park last Friday, or a week ago Friday.
Sure.
Last Friday. And everybody got to go to the water park and have a great time. They never done anything like that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
They'd had parties before, but not like where they bring the family and get to go just enjoy the day. I talked for maybe 10 minutes at the whole thing, and that was it. The rest of it was eat and go play.
That's fun.
It's for you and your family.
That's
It's
awesome.
not about
Did you guys
us.
have good turnout?
I think it was very good. Yeah,
Excellent. That's awesome.
we made T-shirts. My daughter actually designed the back of the T-shirt, and everybody got a T-shirt that says "Donut Maker" on it. And even the folks that didn't go, because we've been working a lot of hours.
Sure.
I want all of them to get a shirt too and thank them still. Just even though they couldn't make it to the party, people were doing hot windows for their mother, and one guy had something to do at his property, and there was all these reasons. But that's because they've been piling that work up because we've been working Fridays and Saturdays a lot. So. And I respect that, and I sincerely mean that. So I wasn't upset if they didn't come. I hoped everybody would come and enjoy it with their families. But if they didn't, that was their choice, and I respect that. So we look at people differently, I think, and I specifically, I sure do. Yeah. And I can be pretty jaded. Sure. I've been around and seen a lot of crazy stuff with folks, but I really do believe that people at their core really want to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. They really do. Yeah. So, and back to California, one of the things that changed my leadership style was I was a go-getter. I mean, I still am. Yeah. Really, really intense, though. And we moved to California in 2011, and my wife and kids stayed home in Indiana. Mm-hmm. I moved out there because it was a startup, and I knew how intense it was going to be. So I didn't see my family for the first 5 months I was there, but twice.
This is the bagel company.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And we brought them out there, and they got there in June, late June. Mm-hmm. School was out. And it was like 2 weeks into them or 3 weeks into them being there. And it was right before my wife's birthday. Mm-hmm. And we worked a Sunday, Thursday schedule. We were off Sundays and Thursdays. So it was Thursday. I went into the office for a little bit, and then we had to take the car to the shop. So we got a rental car at the Mercedes dealer, and we went to the beach. Mm-hmm. And I love just going out and swimming. And I just go out and sit past the break and just hang out and watch the dolphins go by and enjoy the cool water. And it's a hot day. And go in and body surf it back in a couple times. I did that multiple times. Well, the last time I came in, I took one, and it was short break. It was like a black dot day, they call them. I think it was a black flag out and with a black dot, or a yellow flag with a black dot, and it means the waves are coming and breaking short. Uh-huh. Well, I don't know what that means to me. It's just a good time, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I rode about a 6-footer in, and it brought me in, and I came down on my head, landed on the bottom right here. And it shattered my C5, so I was paralyzed from the neck down. Never lost consciousness. I was, it was a bell ringer for sure. And by the time I realized what's going on, I can't move.
Oh yeah.
I knew right away I hurt something. I heard it crack. I thought I broke my collarbone or something like that. Nothing major. But when I go to move, I'm like, all right, rung your bells. I'm still getting beat up in the break.
In the water,
Still getting pounded. And I said, all right, you gotta get moving. And my body wouldn't do anything. It just sat there. You're instantly, your hands change, your body goes into a fetal position. And, the grace of God or my guardian angel or whatever pushed me up to the top of the water, head up. Like usually you kind of, because of your oxygen in your lungs, you go back up. Right. I went head up and was able to gasp for air and yell for help. And I did that 3 times. And my wife was like fit to be tied because she was right there.
Oh, I bet.
And she thought I was joking. Yeah. And somebody came up, and I didn't. She says it was her. I thought it was somebody else. Grabbed my arm and started pulling. I said, "Don't. My neck's broken.
Yeah.
I'm paralyzed." And she was like, start screaming.
Oh yeah.
Lady came running. Another lifeguard came. The lady, she was an ER nurse, and she sat on my head, put my head between her knees and pushed me to the bottom. He sat on my chest and waist and held me down. And the waves would come over me. They go back and they cover me and they go back and they held me there until they can get a board under me, and then they rushed me to the hospital and put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
So when did you start gaining feeling and
so that happened on a Thursday. I was paralyzed still Friday. I don't remember a whole lot. I was in and out. I was on morphine at that point. They put me under and did the surgery on Friday night. And Saturday they were talking to my wife and saying, he's going to be in the hospital probably 3 to 6 months, learning to walk, starting to recover and whatever.
Holy cow.
And they so the guy comes into not the doctor, like a physical therapist. Like, oh, Mr. Larson, we're going to get you started on physical therapy next week. And then I said, why next week?
Yeah, let's get going.
My toes were already moving. I'm like, I'm ready to get out of this place. And he's like, no, sir, I said, well, hold on a second. Where's your stuff? He goes, it's in my office. I said, well, it's in this building, right? He's like, yeah. I said, well, go get it. I'll be right here. I'm not going anywhere. So Saturday, before I even saw the doctor, they had me out of the bed.
Wow.
And I was walking. My arms are still basically paralyzed. And I got up, started moving, and so I saw the doctor later, and he's like, I heard you're out of bed. He goes, I didn't approve that. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah,
I did. I'm like, I'm doing laps on my floor like a crash test dummy,
Wow.
And then that night, that next day, I said, what's it take to go home? He said, well, you have stairs in your house? I said, yeah, they require you to go up them. I said, yes. And he said, you have to be able to do stairs. I did stairs on Sunday. They sent me home on Monday.
Wow.
And the doctor's like, this just doesn't happen.
Unbelievable.
He goes, you're a walking lotto ticket. I said, well, you don't know me.
Yeah, wow.
I'm highly motivated.
And so by Monday you had feeling? throughout.
I couldn't move my arms very much. My hands were still. It's weird how your hands go when you go paralyzed. They kind of get cupped. You can't even make it look like that. There's a real difference. But I started to squeeze stuff, and they had me lifting. At first, I started, those little tea candles that are like this big.
Sure.
That's what I was curling.
Okay.
To start working my arms back. Wow. Curl up a newspaper, or a magazine, and start doing that. And then I'm still walking.
Sure.
And I have a neck brace on, and I have to wear that for months and months and months. So. I remember the day I got that off, and I said, so doctor goes, well, I said, well, what's the limitations? He goes, no water skiing the rest of your life. He goes, no snow skiing.
Yep.
Oh, all right, that's no big deal.
Yeah.
I don't really do those things anyhow. And he's like, you gotta be a little careful.
Yeah.
And I said, roller coasters? He goes, well, you have eight screws holding your head on. He goes, you're good. And I'm like, we went right to Disney. We went right to Disneyland, and I'm walking up, and I've still had to wear my brace for most of the time. Like, we need you to wear it most of the time. You take it. I go up and I get on the roller coaster. I take and hand my brace to my wife, and she walks out the other way, and they're like, is this guy serious?
That's unbelievable. Wow.
I rode a roller coaster with my daughter.
Oh, that's great.
So having something like that happen, does it change your perspective on
It does.
priorities and what's really important in life?
So a couple things that came out of that is I remember one day my daughter, we were at dinner, and she was angry. And she says, why would God do this to you? And I said, what do you mean? She said, why would God do this to you? Why would he hurt you like that? I said, he didn't.
Yeah.
I did it to me. I'm the dumb one.
Yeah.
I said, it's his grace and mercy that got me the ability to walk again, and I'm still here with you guys because of that. And I said, never lose that perspective. That's what we have to remember.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I said, I recovered faster than most. And some people never get past what I went through.
Yeah.
It didn't shear my spinal cord. It damaged it, but I still have numbness and pain and stuff. And this the other thing. The second thing that was important to me is I'd sat there when I was recovering, and I got so angry. Not at anybody, just I was angry because I couldn't do what I want to do. I'm a very independent person, very strong-willed. I'm very driven, and I got just so upset. I mean, I'd sit there, I'd so bored. I'd count cars, how many white cars went by versus how many yellow cars, and doing the math on the numbers as they go by. I mean, it's just stupid stuff to keep my brain occupied because I needed to be busy. Yeah. And I sat there one day, and I must have cried 2 or 3 hours. Just sat there and bawled my eyes out. And it really brought home the idea of the world spins really, really fast, and you got to be able to change that and spin it at your speed. Slow it down. Don't let it spin you. Don't let the world spin you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of after several hours of, crying like a little child, I came to that conclusion for myself, and that was powerful because it has changed me.
Yeah.
I have a different pace and a different perspective. I'm still driven, still do what I do, but it makes me reflect differently and ask different questions. Right?
I like that.
Yeah. So that's kind of my style.
People perspective, right?
Yeah.
That you started with. Yeah.
And that's kind of my style.
Yeah, I like that.
And I've had great people. Greg Moransky at Palermo's, he was an engineer that worked with me, and I loved his question. It was way before Ted Lasso. Love Ted Lasso, by the way.
Me too. Me too. My favorite.
He'd always say, say more. So I use those words a lot.
Yeah.
Say more. And ask, that seek to understand.
Yeah.
Right? Don't be judgmental.
Yeah.
Right.
One of my favorite lines or scenes in that movie is when I don't know if you remember this or not, but he was in that having that dart competition, and he said people just aren't curious anymore.
aren't curious
and he goes,
anymore.
and you didn't know that I played darts every Sunday with my dad. This is greatest scene, and I love that Ted Lasso. He's great.
Yeah, I got my daughter watching it now, and she's finally reluctantly.
There's a lot of little business nuances.
There is. I actually did a seminar. Me and the director of sales went to Texas to a baking convention down there for. It's really about meeting, different industry people. I do quite a few of those, and they had a whole 5 leadership lessons of Ted Lasso.
Oh, really? Cool.
Oh, is that right?
It was so good.
Oh, I love that.
I've talked to guys that went and saw it 3 times.
I was just going to ask the same thing.
On the line.
Yeah.
I think so. The customer service chamber or the customer service association.
Okay.
So Stephanie Stuckey came. I introduced him to Stephanie Stuckey. I really think I'm going to throw out to Mike Thomas, this gentleman, and say, hey, this guy's out of Kansas City. It's only 4.5 hours away.
So he's not far.
Super easy to get him over here. He would be awesome. And anybody who's watched Ted Lasso, and I think the prerequisite is, hey, it's coming.
You gotta
watch Ted Lasso.
Yeah, I love it.
Because then you'll get it. And,
Sure.
And
that's cool.
Yeah.
So what do you do when you're not working? What are your hobbies?
I hunt and fish. I golf a little. I travel.
Love it.
Yeah, my wife and I own some property here just outside of town. We bought 40 acres of land, and
nice.
It's got big giant deer on it.
Good for you.
Lots of them.
Wow, that's
turkeys and all the kinds of wildlife.
You hunt.
That's great.
About everything?
I really don't. I never was really big into hunting for a lot of my life. I never bow hunted for deer ever.
Right.
I pick up a bow when I bought it here, and year 2 I shot like a 163-inch 8-pointer off my property.
That's
so
kidding.
so I mean, it's like I'm hooked now.
Yeah.
Forget it. Most guys are like, forget it, put it away.
Yeah,
I also chase a fish called muskies. I don't know if you ever heard a pike. Like a pike, but different. I chase those all over, and I not a lot this year, but years past. My office actually has a 52 3/4 and a 54 1/2 in my office.
Those are a good size.
Yeah, pretty good ones. Yeah,
You're speaking his language. He loves to hunt.
I love to fish and bird hunt. I'm a bird hunter. I don't hunt deer. I just don't because my dad never did, so nobody ever really got me into it. But I love to be out
like
in
upland
nature.
bird or
both duck and upland. Yeah, both. And dove hunting.
Yeah.
If it flies, I like to shoot it.
No, I
It's something to, but I eat them too. You know what I mean? I don't just shoot
we
them
don't
to kill
kill.
them.
We don't just kill.
We
We
eat. We eat what we kill and all that. But
I draw the line at raccoons. They're
they're
crazy.
They're
crazy.
I don't eat those either. Yeah, I will shoot those.
Yeah.
But
Well, we have a German short-haired pointer, so I grew up. My father was a bird hunter. I grew up with them, so my son wanted one. We actually it's our second one.
I love it.
And she's a spazoid, and she's awesome.
They're good hunting dogs.
Well,
that's
but
for sure.
you need land like that, and we put a GPS collar. And the other day she ran away. I found her almost a mile away.
Okay,
right.
Gotcha. Do you have a favorite lake that you like to fish for muskie?
Well, I mean, there's not a lot around here.
Right.
Jim Edgar State Park, Site M has muskies, and I've caught some out of there.
What about like Minneapolis or Minnesota or
I do
Canada
fish
or...
Minnesota, Canada. Eagle Lake, Ontario is one of my favorites. Big walleye, big muskie. My biggest muskie came out of Lake St. Clair over in Detroit. Or my buddy just arrived home yesterday from up northeast in like St. Lawrence Seaway, that area.
Yeah, sure, nice. Very good. I love it.
Big fish, big fish.
Yeah.
He's always chasing He's on the world record.
Good for him. That's awesome.
Which is a high order.
I
don't
think
think
St. Clair is a beautiful lake.
It's a cool lake. I've got some great friends that are fishermen out there. So my buddy I was referencing, he owns a lure company, a muskie lure company.
Okay,
so
cool.
since 2005 or 7, I think it was, he started it, and we've been kind of partners in crime. It's his business. I have non-equity owning partner.
Okay.
So I always jokingly refer to myself, but yeah, it's a great thing.
All right, cool.
We do that. And we camp a lot. So
You do?
Yeah, we don't have any house or anything on our property.
Okay.
We have a wall tent, a canvas wall tent, and we no facilities, no anything, no electric, no water, nothing. We
nature.
just live out there. I love it.
That's cool.
Yeah. Very neat.
Yeah.
Well, you've had quite the journey. That's for sure. So are you really enjoying Springfield now that you're back here?
Yeah, I think the property's a big part for us.
Yeah.
'Cause I'll say it clearly. Springfield's a great town, but it's not Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not LA.
No, I get it.
Right.
Right. You don't have all the amenities you have in the big city. So we find ways to enjoy ourselves here, and there's some great restaurants we love to go to, and we have our favorites, and we don't go often, but when we do, we go and have a nice time, and made some good friends here, and the people are genuinely good.
Yeah,
that's the
right.
thing I'll say
great
for
time.
sure. Midwest.
Amen.
Yeah, amen, for sure. Don't forget to ask him the question.
Yeah, I was just going to
the question.
The question.
The question. He calls it the question. Not that big of a deal. I think he probably answered some of it already.
I think he did.
So
He
when
did,
we wrap
actually,
these
yeah.
up, so we don't want to keep you all day, although we would like to, but we don't want to. We want to respect your time. We always ask folks, so after your life journey, if you could look back and tell yourself, 30 years ago, a couple of lessons that you've learned throughout your life, what might those be?
Oh, great question. So, I think the things that I've learned, if I could have learned to be patient sooner. I'm patiently impatient. I tell people, and I think
That's
that
a
comes.
strength and a weakness, right?
It is patiently impatient. But I don't always show it. So I think that's the other thing is I had some great lessons in life of just not. I'm a fairly emotional person, but not overly emotional. So I can be kind of stoic when I need to be, but I can also go off the rails and get crazy and mad. And, that's probably the redhead in me.
Yep.
But I would taught myself an earlier lesson around that, just to show that sooner versus later. And I think that the thing I could share with my children that I want them to be is just find happiness. Do something you love. And when you feel it's not there, or the passion's going away out of it, don't hesitate to make a call.
Yeah.
Because life is way too short.
Sure.
You don't know that next wave's going to take you out. You just don't know.
Right.
So you gotta live it. So, and that's part of the challenge with this company buying it was that I was leaving something really great that I loved,
Sure.
and a company and people that a team I really loved. But I look at this and said, look, if we get it running the way it needs to run, and we have the right people around us, and we do the right things and let them do their jobs, it will free me up to do other things, more time, give back to my industry. I'm trying to do speeches, and I travel all over the country doing things, and I've got a great network of executives in the bakery industry that are movers and shakers that I call my brothers. And I want to give back as a leader. I want to give back to my industry. And I think that this is what I tried to build into this process here, is that I have that ability to do that, because time is precious. You don't have any more of it. You're going to get what God gives you, and that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
So,
Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for joining the show. It's been fun.
I learned a lot today.
Well,
thank you.
I don't know. I hope it was all good.
It was all good.
It was great.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you guys.
Yep.
Appreciate
Yep.
it.